My name is Malcolm, and I'm a PSLE Science Specialist here at the Pique Lab. Welcome to another episode of PSLE Science Made Simple. In this video, I'll be going through a past year examination question on the topic of magnets. I've also prepared this question for you to download for free by clicking a link in the description box below. So, let's get started. Question 25. Valerie placed objects A, B, C, and D near the north pole of a magnet one at a time, and then she recorded her observations in this table below. So they said, based on her observations, which of the statements here is true? Now, before we take a look at the options, let's try and find out what are we able to conclude based on the observations above. So first, let's take a look at object A. Now, for object A, what did she observe? She said that there was repulsion. So whenever there is repulsion, what are we able to conclude about object A? This actually tells us that object A is a magnet. Now, how are we able to tell it is a magnet? In order for two objects to repel one another, this means the like poles of two magnets must have been facing each other. Therefore, this tells us that object A must definitely be a magnet. Now, what about object B? This time, we observe that there is attraction. So whenever there is attraction, what are we able to conclude about object B? This actually tells us that object B is made of a magnetic material. Now, some of you might be wondering, couldn't it be a magnet as well? The answer is yes, B could also be a magnet. And what's the reason why? It's because the unlike poles of two magnets facing each other can also attract. But remember, even if B is a magnet, can you recall what magnets are made of? Magnets are made of magnetic materials. Therefore, whether or not B is a magnet, we don't know, but we can definitely conclude it must be made of a magnetic material. So, if you want to confirm that B is a magnet, what do you think we should do? We should actually flip the magnet around such that now the south pole is facing object B. And when the south pole is facing object B, if there is repulsion, what can we conclude? This tells us B is a magnet. But even after we flip the magnet around and now there is still attraction, then what can we conclude? This tells us B is a magnetic material. Now let's continue on to C. Now for C, what did she observe? This time she noticed there was no reaction. So if there was no reaction, this means could object C be attracted? No. So what can you conclude about C then? C must have been made of a non-magnetic material. And that is why there was no attraction. Now what about D? If we take a look at D, we see that there is also attraction. So this is very similar to B. So what can we conclude about D? We can conclude the same thing, that D is made of a magnetic material. So with this understanding, we can finally take a look at the options. Now option 1, it says that object C is made of steel. Now let's recall, steel is a what kind of material? Steel is a magnetic material. And in fact, what are the 4 different magnetic materials we learn about? There is steel, iron, nickel, cobalt. But remember, from the table, what did we conclude about C? We saw that C is made of a non-magnetic material. So, is it possible for C to be made of steel? No. In fact, it must be made of a non-magnetic material instead. Okay, so we can cross out option 1. Now, what about option 2? They say that the objects B and D will have the same magnetic strength. Now, how are we able to tell whether they have the same magnetic strength? We need to carry out experiments to determine this. So what are some experiments we can do such that we can compare the magnetic strength of B and D? One experiment we can do is by counting the number of paper clips attracted to the two magnets when the magnets are placed at the same distance away from some paper clips. Or another experiment that we can do is to measure what is the furthest distance that the two magnets can attract a paper clip from. But based on the observations above, did Valerie carry out these two experiments? No. So as a result, are we able to tell what is the magnetic strength of B and D? No. So we're going to write this out. We cannot tell. So because we cannot tell, we can cross out option 2. Now let's move on to option 3. Now they said that object A will get attracted by the south pole of the magnet. Now let's see if this is true. Remember earlier, we said that A is a magnet. And what was the observation? There is repulsion. So let me draw it out. Now, in order for them to repel, what poles must have been facing each other? It must have been the like poles that cause them to repel. And if the north pole of the magnet was facing object A, this tells us that the north pole of object A was facing the magnet as well. So now let's take a look at what happens for option 3 when the south pole of the magnet is now facing the north pole of object A. So let's take a look at this. When the north and south poles face each other, these are the unlike poles. So when unlike poles are facing each other, what do you think we'll observe this time? This time, there is going to be attraction. So is option 3 correct? Definitely. But let's check option 4 just to be safe. So for option 4, they said B and D will be repelled by the south pole of the magnet. Now remember, in order for there to be repulsion, this means that B and D must be magnets. But remember, from her observations, can we tell whether or not they are magnets? No. So I'm going to write this down. This is only true if they are magnets. So as a result, are we able to tell? No. And since we are not able to tell, we can cross out option 4, which means the correct answer should be option 3. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you found this video useful, do give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to check out more videos by us, do click on the links on the right hand side. Last but not least, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos. Thank you, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!